Let's talk about all this with Congresswoman Debbie Lesko of Arizona. It's a border state. She's also a member of the Homeland Security Committee, and you might have seen her this week at the border with the president. Good to see you, Congresswoman. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
You know, we used to have a policy that didn't, most people just assumed was pretty obvious of forbidding people who had very contagious diseases from entering into the United States. Back around the turn of the century, 100 years ago, it was usually tuberculosis or some other disease like that. Now it's COVID. I don't understand why it's so controversial to issue something which has stood this country well for hundreds of years.
Well, I'm also on Judiciary Committee along with Homeland Security Committee, and I can tell you that I don't understand often some of my Democratic colleagues. I mean, they vilify the Border Patrol officers when the Border Patrol officers are doing a good job securing our nation. And I really have to applaud President Trump. He talked about securing the border from day one, and he's done it. That's why we went down to the border. I flew with him on Air Force One, and we had a roundtable where we talked about the issues that are happening on the ground and what improvements have been made in security in Yuma, Arizona. And then we actually drove down to the border, saw the big new 30-foot tall fence. We signed a plaque that commemorated 200 new miles of fence. And President Trump's getting it done. He's following through with what he said he's going to do.
He is indeed. And I'm just curious what your constituents think about it, because a lot of people just assumed it was a debate inside the Capitol, not recognizing that the people who live on the border were being terrorized by all this. Of course, there were a lot of drug dealers that were coming in with weapons, terrorizing them literally like that. But just to have people constantly walking across your property is a terrifying thing. Are they satisfied now with the work that's being done on the border?
Well, they sure are happy that President Trump is our president, because he's actually doing something about it versus the previous administration that wanted to basically open up the borders. I'm telling you, I see firsthand how my Democratic colleagues prioritize illegal immigrants over U.S. citizens. They virtually want open borders, which could, you have drug trafficking, you have human and sex trafficking, and of course now we have coronavirus. So to what you and I think is common sense and building a wall so you can legally funnel people in an orderly fashion through the border, my Democrat colleagues really want open borders, and I just think it's insane.
Now, one thing you don't hear about anymore, maybe it's just not in the news because there's so much other news, but the caravans. Have they ended? Has the word gotten out in Latin America and elsewhere that, in fact, the border security is much tighter than it was, and therefore we shouldn't bother starting another caravan? Or what's happening there?
Well, yeah, those caravans of people, that is definitely slowed down, because what was happening before President Trump stepped in is that people knew that they could just claim asylum and very easily get into our country and then wait for sometimes years to see a federal judge and claim asylum. Most of them were denied, but by then they had already gotten into the United States and they didn't show up to court. So it was a real easy way for them to get across the border. And yes, my constituents care about this issue. All of Arizona cares about this issue. Before coronavirus took hold this year, border security was the #1 polling issue in Arizona, because it's not just the border communities that suffer. All those drugs come up into the Phoenix corridor. There's sex trafficking. There's violence. I mean,
right.
These drug cartels are not nice people.
Well,
They're
and
nasty.
Congresswoman, let me be clear about it. I married an immigrant from Central America. There are a lot of Central Americans that are horrified by the human trafficking that was going on between the border. That alone is a reason why, even if you're an immigrant from those areas, you should be concerned about what's going on here.
Oh, you're totally right. And, you know, they were using kids. Those drug cartels and human trafficking cartels were using children, you know, to try to, get better access for asylum. It was a gimmick. It was what they told these immigrants to do. And then they ship them back down to Central America and use them again. It was absolutely horrible what these people will do. They don't care about the immigrants.
Of course not.
You know, it's awful, and we need to stop it, and thank God that President Trump has done it.
All right. Well, Congresswoman, we thank you for your work as well. Debbie Lesko, have a wonderful weekend. Again, we thank you for coming in. Happy July 4th, by the way. That's just a week away. Enjoy yourself.
Thank you.
I'm David Asman.